Well, welcome everybody. Another monthly meeting getting started. I'm Jenna, the communications director for Fremont for Everyone. We're glad that you came. As every meeting, we've got some really interesting things to get into. But before we do, um, we just have to say that we're really sad for Lilia, our original YIMBY liaison, has left, but we got a new one, and his name is Constantine. He's going to be taking over Lilia's role. I've met Constantine a couple times at some YIMBY parties. He's a very fun guy, very passionate, and I know that I'm very excited to work with him because he, gets stuff done, and we like that. So we'll hopefully next meeting we can get him to come, and then have you guys meet him, and then we'll be able to do more from there. So somebody say something? Nope. Okay. All right.
Hi, I just joined. Sorry for being late.
Don't worry.
I was still working, so.
You're still working? Okay, no. You got to give us at least 5 minutes of screen time, and then you're fine. No, I'm just kidding. Hello. Long time no see.
Okay.
All righty. Sorry, I'm blanking on this. Lisa, you said you were going to take this announcement on the upcoming policy committee meetings?
Sure. Either I or Catherine can take it.
Right.
Catherine,
Okay.
did you want me to explain or do you want to?
This was for the policy
Yes.
committee. Okay, so Sunday the 21st, Sunday the 28th, we will be the policy committee meeting will be policy committee will be meeting at 5 p.m. to talk about what type of housing developers we want to get behind in terms of making sure that they're just fitting in with, making sure that, they're being responsible and not sketchy and, taking into consideration, what kind of quality living residents will have, and not taking so many shortcuts or packing people in so tightly that we lose quality. So basically that's it. We just want to think about, what that looks like, what we can support, given our own bylaws. And for anybody who is interested, you may attend to give your input, and we welcome that. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. David, I know you got to say here about the Supreme Court decision, Cities of Grants Pass, Oregon versus Johnson. Tell us, give us a rundown on that.
Okay. Before I talk about the opinion itself, I want to set the stage of the case it overruled, which was the case of Martin versus City of Boise, which was decided in 2019. So that was about 5 years ago, and it was decided by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We've got 13 federal circuit courts. The Ninth Circuit is, each circuit court of appeals has authority over a number of states within that circuit. The Ninth Circuit happens to control California, Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and a few other states. And so when the Martin versus City of Boise came down, it was a very important decision. It said that under the Eighth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. And the city of Martin, or the city of Boise, rather, in Idaho, had imposed criminal penalties for sitting, sleeping, or lying outside on public property for homeless individuals who cannot obtain shelter. And the Ninth Circuit said you cannot criminalize those people who are experiencing homelessness for the mere status of being homeless. And the test was a rather simple one, which is, as long as there are not enough shelters in the community to house all those experiencing homelessness, it's cruel and unusual punishment to jail, to fine, to otherwise penalize the status of experiencing homelessness. And it was a, an important decision, and one that you had cities in California beginning to chafe under, including, we are a nonpartisan group, but it really caused a divide within the Democratic Party. You had Democratic mayors like London Breed of San Francisco and a Democratic governor in Newsom opposing that decision because it said it restricted their ability to have sweeps and do other things that they wanted to do to clear up the issue of homelessness. So there was another decision that came up a couple years later, or more recently, the city of Grants Pass, Oregon. In Oregon, even in the face of the city of the Martin versus city of Boise decision, came up with a similar ordinance that criminalized camping, and under the definition of camping, it included sleeping in vans. And so there was a class action of residents or those that experienced homelessness in Grants Pass saying, you're violating the city of Boise decision. We're in the Ninth Circuit, we're in Oregon. You have to stop this. And again, Grants Pass, like many of our cities in the Ninth Circuit and across the country, was able to establish that there was not enough shelter beds for those experiencing homelessness. The district court applied an injunction to stop it. The Ninth Circuit reaffirmed its decision and it went up to the Supreme Court. So in this last term that just ended on July 1st with the presidential immunity case, about a week before, they held it to the very end of this term in June, the United States Supreme Court overruled Martin versus City of Boise. And what was very painful, and I could see the writing on the wall given the composition of the court. So I've been posting on our discussion page, even during oral argument, that I anticipated this was going to be the result. But what was really disappointing for us here, I think, as Fremont for Everyone and for those of us that are fighting for our most vulnerable, was that the California State Association of Counties and the League of California Cities filed what's called an amici curiae brief. It's Friends of the Court brief, supporting overturning the Martin versus City of Boise decision. And that includes, that association, it represents Alameda County. That association for the League of Cities represents Fremont. So we have people that may say that they support addressing homelessness in our community, and yet operationally through these lobbying organizations gave voice to overturning the decision and the majority opinion to appear, that it was striking a chord of public support, actually cites Mayor London Breed and Mayor Gavin Newsom as among those that were calling for overturning Martin versus the City of Boise. And what was disappointing was that the Supreme Court is allowing cities to criminalize those that are experiencing homelessness. Doesn't mandate that cities do that, but it creates as an array of policy options that cities can impose fines, that the cities can jail the homeless without violating the Eighth Amendment. So they have a very narrow view of the Eighth Amendment. And Sotomayor wrote a really compelling, Justice Sotomayor wrote a very compelling dissent. Her first line really, I thought, just crystallized the issue. She said, sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an option. And she also goes on to talk about the fact that, there is complicated balancing of policy issues. There's limited resources. And this was a brilliant paragraph. She says, it is possible to acknowledge and balance the issues facing local governments, the humanity and dignity of homeless people, and our constitutional principles. Instead, the majority, and she's focusing on the majority opinion that overruled Martin versus City of Boise. She's in the minority, joined by Kagan and Jackson, 6-3 decision. Instead, the majority focuses almost exclusively on the needs of local governments and leaves the most vulnerable in our society with an impossible choice. Either stay awake or be arrested. Okay. So this is the inhumanity of the decision and why it really is, you know, a disservice to really fighting the needs. And I think one of the great ironies of the decision, I can go on with some other quotes here, but she also talks about the real practical consequences. When you get fined, that imperils your ability to get social services. You may be disqualified from other sorts of services. And it's a revolving door. It doesn't deal, it deals symptomatically with it. It doesn't deal with the root causes, which is to build more housing and to really address it in a strategic way rather than criminalizing it. And she says even local police realize this is not a solution by having move-along orders. Police officers in these cities recognize as much. Quoting from a police officer, look, we're not really solving anybody's problem. This is a big whack-a-mole. Just going one after another. And it's really that kind of superficial approach that otherizes our neighbors, you know, creates them as less than. And so I was saying, okay, what do we do with this information? I thought, well, as an attorney, I understand that there is a federal Eighth Amendment, and oftentimes there are parallel state rights under our state constitution. We have, for example, a state constitutional right of privacy, which is explicit. And on that basis, when we've passed legislation at the state level supporting reproductive choice for women, it's grounded in our state right to privacy that doesn't have to deal with the Dobbs decision. But before I get to the state law, there was one irony that was pointed out, not by me, but by other observers that were sharing that observation, and I agree with it. In the same term of the Supreme Court overturned a 40-year decision called the Chevron decision, where the rule had been that when you have a federal agency that promulgates regulations, they're the subject matter experts. They know what they're talking about. They're filling in where statutes can't possibly fill in for every conceivable possibility. You know, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency deals with other threats to the environment. ATF had actually outlawed bump stock guns, thinking that was a natural extension of machine guns. And there would ordinarily have been deference to that. The Lopez decision that came out in the same term says, no, we don't want to, unless Congress explicitly addresses this issue, we don't believe administrative agencies have that power. We as judges will decide what is appropriate or not. And so it arrogates power to the judiciary, and suddenly they become subject matter experts. Well, when it comes to the issue of homelessness, they were saying, no, this is too complicated for judges to get involved. We can't possibly have injunctions to dictate policy. So they're all over the place. It's really results driven. And, you know, I've been studying, you know, as an attorney for nearly 35 years, Supreme Court opinions. There really needs to be some ideological and jurisprudential consistency, and there is none. It's really just a power grab. So I was saying, okay, I'm going to leap to the state constitution. There is a state constitutional provision that is exactly like the Eighth Amendment. It's Article 1, Section 17 of the California Constitution, which outlaws cruel or unusual punishment. And there may not be the imposition of excessive fines. Okay, Well, unfortunately, there was already a Supreme Court decision back in 1995, which hasn't been overruled, that addressed the same issue that City of Grants Pass did, and they found that cities can criminalize um, the experience of homelessness, and it doesn't violate the state constitution. So there's not, unless there is new legislation, and we can talk about some things that we can do, and I will in a minute. There is no recourse to our courts in the state as the state has interpreted the our version of the Eighth Amendment to get protection against ordinances locally. And I was a little frustrated today, just today, and this was her term. Mayor Breed celebrated the decision of the Supreme Court, and that was her term. She was celebrating. She was taking joy in it, and was talking about how they're going to have sweeps and that it would include potentially criminal penalties. So they're just going right, they're taking the power that was given, the vacuum that has now been created by eliminating an Eighth Amendment bar to it, and going right for the jugular for criminalizing being homeless. I'm going to read very briefly before I talk about ordinances and open it up to questions. An email I got from our own local abode services, which I thought was very eloquent, and saying abode services, saying we strongly object to the recent Supreme Court decision of City Grants Pass, which will make it easier for authorities to punish people for experiencing homelessness, even when there's no adequate shelter. The court's ruling runs counter to our deeply held belief that this nation's laws and policies should protect the most vulnerable people in our community, not threaten them. At Abode, our stance is clear. Homelessness is not a crime, it is a crisis, one that is a result of systemic failures that have produced fewer than 24 affordable units for every 100 people who need them. Criminalizing homelessness is wrong in every way. It is cruel, ineffective, costly, and it creates unnecessary barriers to fighting poverty. Arresting or finding people who don't have a home worsens cycles of homelessness, and it makes it more difficult to find solutions. The solution to homelessness is housing, not handcuffs. I thought that was a great final sentence. The solution to homelessness is housing, not handcuffs. So what can we do? I'm going to open up the floor. One thing that I had suggested in the discussion group is certainly try to get our city council members on the record for taking a policy position that if in fact we're a compassionate city, which we talk about all the time, we also became the sanctuary city, that we don't exclude our neighbors experiencing homelessness from our compassion and our sanctuary. You either have these bold proclamations that mean something, or they're just performative. What are they? You put up or shut up. The other thing is, I think Assemblymember Lee would be a wonderful conduit to maybe create legislation codifying, at least at the state level, an interpretation based on a new interpretation of our own state constitution against cruel and unusual punishment, outlawing any local jurisdiction from criminalizing homelessness. That would be an interesting thing for an assembly member at the state level to create state laws. So those are my two policy prescriptions, but I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think hopefully I've explained it and we can talk about the policy ramifications now.
Well, thank you, David. That was a great explanation. I know it's complicated and tricky. There's so much precedence and all that fun stuff that goes into it. I'm looking to see anybody have any questions or any suggestions that they might think is relevant.
Catherine's has her hand raised.
Well, Annie, I see Annie has
okay, I didn't know.
Hand raised. What's up, Annie?
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, David. I do concur, right? It's a large policy problem, right, that this has happened. But would be really interested, right, in working on solutions either at the local level or the state level, right, to hopefully ensure that our jurisdictions are not running around and criminalizing people for the right, for being unhoused, right, quite obviously that is cruel and unusual punishment, even if Brett Kavanaugh doesn't think so. But yeah, but I would be really interested in working on this. Query how far it would get at either level, but right, my understanding is that the city doesn't do that much criminalizing of being unhoused now, and so maybe that would be an easier level to start at, because it's not, to the best of my knowledge, going to be that big a policy change from the status quo.
But do we know that? I mean, before they were operating under the idea that there were certain things they weren't allowed to do legally. So now that they can do them legally. So I think Berkeley came out, the city of Berkeley was like, we're not changing anything as a
Good.
result of this. We need to get the Fremont City Council to do the same.
Good. That would be a great, who's
On
speaking?
record.
I can't see who's speaking.
The cat.
That was Marie,
Yeah.
the cat and the wizard. All
Oh,
right.
very good. Thank you, Kat. A perfect solution.
Perfect. Catherine.
Hi. So thank you, David. That was a wonderful presentation. Definitely, you've got the expertise behind that. I really appreciate that. And you clarified some things for me too that I had questions about. The only thing I would maybe briefly add, because this is such a controversial subject, is that, you know, our city, our county, and our state has announced ourselves as sanctuary cities for immigrants. So if we can do that, I don't see any reason why we can't do the same thing for homelessness. So that's the only thing that I would, you know, add. But like I said, it's a controversial subject to bring immigrants into the discussion. So I'm not sure if it would, you know, go very far or not. I don't know if it detract from it. So
Well, as I
that-
said, we had two major, before I was on council, when I was on council, we became a sanctuary city, but before we were on council, about a year before, we also became a compassionate city, which is part of an international group. So under the larger framework of being a compassionate city, it doesn't have to get into the immigration issue per se. But
okay.
Well, yeah, because immigrants are people too, right? So
Yeah. We're all human, you
Right.
know, whether we're housed or not, we're human beings.
we all need help.
Yep. So thank you for that clarification, David.
thank you.
Sandra.
Yeah, thank you, David, for the overview on all. Really helps. In terms of our local needs, we do have a changing of the guard. So Susan Schiffeld is retiring, and we have a temporary replacement, which I don't know who that is. Are we any closer to having somebody selected that we know? And you know, HR would be the only one, you know, that would know that. But so where do we go from here if Fremont for Everybody writes a letter, you know, official letter on requesting what we want from our people? So.
Well, the way that the city works locally here, we're not a charter city, and that's a decision that's exclusively made by the city manager. It's not a council decision.
Okay. Thank you.
But that doesn't prevent
Made
us
by
from
the city
arguments
what?
saying these are the qualities, you know, thank you, Suzanne, for your years of service. We hope that the city manager, in his infinite wisdom, finds somebody that really, you know, will stand tall for safe parking, all the things that we can talk about. You can put that out in oral communications.
Right. And since you brought up the safe parking issue. Where are we at with that? Is that been discontinued now officially? And maybe Marie and Marlon Paris might know what's happening. Is that still open, or have they closed that program due to non-participants, or what's happening? Your speaker's not on. You need to turn on your speaker.
So, it's not closing. I was just saying that it's just seems to be that they're not finding other locations. And, so July 1st, they just, their contract itself has been renewed and they've got more funding as of July 1st, right? So they got more money. So Abode, still has the contract for casework, but their contract ends in October. So I don't think the city wants to take it over because they're not very accountable for what happens. So I'm assuming that Abode will get a renew of contract. I think that your biggest challenge is that, people, I don't know, I just think there's, safe parking is sort of becoming the alternative housing form. Because if you, have a car, great, you're in a house. And, except that the house doesn't really have, plumbing, nor does it have kitchens or anything like that. So I think that, in some aspects, they're looking at probably safe parking a little bit differently. It's just, I really wish they would adopt, Alameda's, safe parking program, because it isn't a permanent spot and you have more benefits and, more help there. But, the city of Fremont is, I've been told that, the girl that Judith that runs the program she's very busy. I don't know what she's busy doing, but, we're at a new location now, and it was kind of funny because one of the volunteers said, we should be making these people's lives easier and better, not harder. So, I think that's the other challenge, is that why do we have to go after churches for hosting us? Why not, empty buildings that don't have anybody around? Why are we just going after churches? And, also the churches that have been on the program for a long time have dropped out for 2 or 3 months at a time now, because, they've got, Niles Church dropped out because the pipes are being redone on Niles Boulevard. So they're not going to be able to host us again until about November. Grace Church, was another one, and they now decide they're only going to host us twice a year instead of 3 times a year. So, and this new church that we have, they're hosting us now, and then they said they're hosting us again in December. So, but the challenge is, of course, the hours are so ridiculous. But anyway, it's just the way it is. So I think they'll still do it. I think the other suggestion that James came up with is that maybe, for Fremont, for everyone to do it might be a bit of a stretch, but maybe consider creating our own, parking program. Because some of those things that they're doing is not really very efficient, let's put it that way. And, so that was just, one of the things that came up, and we'll keep going, but they're still not, like the city council, as you know, when we all went to the last meeting, is that they basically said, we asked for a permanent spot, and they said, no, we're not, Lily Mae just said, no, we're not working on that this year. So she's just trying to hope that turn it over to the next person that takes over from her. And then, I think it was also that we asked for, safe parking for RVs. Well, that isn't going anywhere, and safe parking for families, that isn't going anywhere. So, I think maybe we just have to push the city more. That would be my only solution, or just start a program just for those people. Those categories of people. I don't know. That's just my thought.
Thank you.
I'm muted.
You got another? Oh, look, Marie,
Yeah.
you go, and then I'll go back to Catherine.
Yeah, so my perspective on this is that the program's plodding along. churches drop out, churches come in. There's kind of a core group. They never have 15 people like they claim they have spots for. But it's not like it's dwindled down to like only 5 people. It needs, to me, it needs more energy behind it and to be expanded instead of just kind of plodding along. And, you know, it serves a handful of people, and that's great for them. But, you know, ML mentioned all the people it doesn't serve, and there doesn't seem to be any energy from the city to expand at all.
I will correct you, Marie. We've had up to every night pretty much the last few month or so. We've had 11 people.
That's good.
Yeah.
But have you ever had 15? I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, it used to be 8 or 9 was like full. So it's good that it's gone up to 11, but they claim they have spots for 15 people. They don't even, the last time I counted, there weren't even 15 people on the list.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the thing I would just say to that is the reason why they're only allowing 15 because the smallest church could only handle 15, but they're no longer in the program because the building got sold. So we could make more spaces if churches were bigger, right? Yeah.
Right. But I think that's all part of the fact, this is what I get when I go and volunteer, I get a sense there just isn't energy. There's like, you know, I have, you know, this much energy to put to that program, and it's not getting any more. Because if it was, then they'd be going in and saying, well, can we now do 20? And why don't we get 40 people on the list or whatever? You know, get enough people on the list so that always had 15 people there. And that none of that's happening. It's just kind of, yeah.
Well, I think the challenge is the city doesn't do any outreach. You know, like you can't do outreach behind your computer. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how you do it. So that's why you feel that there's no energy in it. Like Judith never comes, when she comes to the center, it's on her time when she thinks that she should come. Are there any problems? You know, but it's not the solution just to say, show up and just say, is there any problems, you know? So.
So I forgot to add to my question. So at this time, our campers in the parking program do have protections right now, despite, you know, the overturning of the 8th Amendment.
What do you mean by protections?
Well, they can't classify anybody as homeless, and even though Annie pointed out that they're not really doing that anymore, you know, the fact is that could change tomorrow, right? So are there any protections, you know, at this time for?
Sorry, I still don't understand your question. Protections. So
David,
everyone that goes into the program gets an FBI check. So everybody knows that it is safe parking. If there's people that park there and show up, I just tell them, hey, you can't park there. If you don't move, we'll call the police. Not that they'll do anything, but just it's enough to get them going. And but there's not you know, protections for what? I'm not sure what you're.
I think she's trying to say because of the Supreme Court decision.
So this may be more towards David Bonacorsi.
I think this safe parking is not really affected by the.
It's not people camping on the street. It's a program.
People on the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Bonacorsi.
Yeah. What the issue about Grants Pass is if the city of Fremont wanted to pass an ordinance like in Grant Pass that would make public camping, including as defined by Grants Pass and in Boise, parking in vehicles, it now has the power to do so without violating the 8th Amendment. In the absence of the city doing that, it doesn't impact safe parking because we're trying to provide a service that's not criminalized anything. So that's, the city would have to affirmatively say, hey, we're going to make this a misdemeanor for doing what we're doing. That's not the status right now.
Okay, thank you. That's important then to, I guess, you know, note before we write that letter, you know, that we currently do not have those ordinances and to ensure that we don't have those.
Right, that we value the dignity of everybody, and then I'd like to see what the city of Berkeley did. I think that would be a great template. But I also think, just from an advocacy point of view, I don't think that we should just get in the position saying, don't do something. We've got to be really using this as a way of pivoting to say, this is why we support all three prongs of the safe parking. This is why we support affordable housing. This is why we're doing this. Because again, we're addressing, if you want solutions, jailing ain't the solution. Housing's the solution. Okay, so let's use that as a pivot point, not just simply say, hey, don't do this to us. This is bad, you know, and rally around that.
Right.
Make it a positive.
Thank you, David.
All right, Catherine.
I've been writing my comments in the I've been writing what I had to say in the comments. So I'll let you read my first 3 points and then I'll go to my next one. During that meeting where they had the hired person, I can't remember the name of the person they hired. Okay, in a second, I'm going to have you explain that, Mary Lynn, okay? Anyway, the fourth point I wanted to make on that is that during that presentation to city council by the person that they hired on how to handle the homeless situation in Fremont, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'm kind of stuck on your thought. I'm gonna have to come back to this, but if anybody has any questions or comments about my first 3 points, I'd like to hear about that. And Marilyn, is it Marilyn or Mary Lynn?
It's Mary Lynn or
Okay.
ML or ML, one or the other. So the Methodist Church is not coming on board because the problem is that each of these churches have to work with the planning department and the fire department, because where they're going to put the porta potties. The church wanted the porta potties further out on the street area, and the planning says, no, you can't do that. It has to be within here, and there. And so it's between the city and what they can do and can't do. And so I think that's the issue. So Methodist Church, I understand they have that big parking lot, but they wanted to put us in the gravel part, not the paid parking. And the city said no. So until they changed their mind about that as well.
Okay. That's interesting because the gravel part of the parking lot is generally considered the MPUUC parking lot for the building behind the Methodist Church for that congregation. And then the paved parking lot is for the Methodist parking. So
but they've been talking to the Universalist Church and said, hey, we want to host them. Can we use that spot? Whatever, whatever. But
there's more room in the graveled area too. So
yeah. And then regarding what Lily May said, churches being harassed at the very beginning when they were going to start the program, churches would say yes, and then the neighbors, like for example, Christ the King, there was a landscaper that was really upset they were all doing it, so he got all the neighbors riled up. But now they just say, well, you know, we've hosted them many times, and he's asked the landscaper, so what, is there any problems? And he says, no, there's nothing happening, nothing going on. They're not causing a problem at all. So I think it's just more or less to that aspect.
Okay. So the fourth point I wanted to make, now that I remember it, is that there has traditionally been 15 spots available, and that was, from what I understand, only because one of the churches that had volunteered only had 15 spots available for that. That church has since dropped out, so there does not appear to be any reason why there should be that number limitation now as it is. Second of all, from what I understand from the people who have been volunteering for the safe parking program, only 7 or 8 people who are on the list are actually showing up for safe parking, whereas the people who are in charge of the safe parking program say that, well, there's only one space available on the safe parking list. And so there has been a presumption brought up by 1 or 2 other people whom I cannot remember now, that people are taking advantage of the fact that there are gas vouchers. So they're remaining on the list, but not showing up for the program so that they can take advantage of gas vouchers. So that is kind of my overall understanding of what's going on with safe parking.
Well,
So,
you know, since I'm in the program, I think I could speak a little bit better to those situations than sometimes volunteers. Yeah, that's
okay.
true. People do show up and just get the gas cards and they're gone. But Judith has also created some rules and saying if you miss more than 2 nights, you're out of the program. And then there's a lot of reasons why people aren't there every night. It could be that if their car is broken down, they cannot park in the parking lot because they have to be gone every morning. So there are a lot of people, if they have car issues, they can't come to safe parking because they can't have their car broken down sitting at a church all day long. So that's number one. Sometimes people are having medical procedures and they're in a hotel room or they're staying with a friend while they do the medical procedures. Sometimes it is just people just AWOL. We just had a guy goes to Ohlone College and some lady broadsided her car and yeah, we're getting into the weeds of it, I agree. And so anyway, he broadside and he doesn't have a car. So he can't be in the program anymore because he has to have a car to be in the program. So there's lots of little things, but we could talk about those things at another meeting. I agree. This is going off topic here. So I'm
Okay, thank you.
gonna close that
Thank
out.
you for clarifying some of that for me. I appreciate that.
Okay, I agree. I'm gonna let Gotta finish, and then we can move on.
So Lisa and I spoke, and Jenna also at City Council last night. Tuesday night on the safe parking program. We advocated for it. I threw some numbers out there about the 15 parking spots only, and we've got a total of 517 people living in vehicles in Fremont. Anyway, I got a response back from Kassan, City Council member Kassan, saying she would like to advocate that, but she's tried in the past, it didn't go anywhere. Would we approach City Council Campbell to sponsor this to be added to the agenda to be talked about? Now, my point is, I took all this data from the homeless response plan. This is something they agreed on and they passed to work on. And specifically, they say they want to expand the safe parking program, expand the sites, take the services to where people are. So the 2 prongs definitely there, specified. So, and we're just reminding them and asking them to expedite this. So why does she think that it needs to be sponsored, to be put on the agenda, blah, blah, blah. This is something that the city approved to work on. They're just not doing anything about it yet. We haven't seen it. By the way, this is not new with the response plan. This is something that they agreed on in 2021. So how do I answer her? I was going to answer her exactly what I just said. It says no city council member, you just need to ask city council to work on these things, right?
Yeah, I got that email from
You
her.
also got it, right? And
Yeah.
Lisa, you got it too?
I did, and I also have some other information about conversations with Councilmember Campbell. Is this a good time to bring that up?
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so I
Yeah.
was actually going to, basically I was going to respond real quick before I get to you, Lisa. I was going to respond to Jenny and just say, hey, we're already talking with, Councilmember Campbell about this, and we'll keep you updated on what we get and blah, blah, blah. Thanks for reaching out, all that stuff. That's basically where I think we should stand on it. But Lisa, you can give more insight onto what you're talking about with Councilmember Campbell.
Yeah, and before I do, I want to say welcome to iPhone 333. Who is that?
Oh yeah, how funny.
Okay, maybe they can't hear me.
iPhone
But
3, do they have some noise in the background?
iPhone 333, Bert Aguilera.
oh, hi Bert, welcome.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure joining the meeting.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
And I just
So-
moved here to Fremont 2 months ago.
Well, congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you.
How did you
Oh,
find
are
out?
you?
We love it.
Good.
Did you meet us at the 4th of July after party?
Yes, I joined 3 groups at the parade. And then I was at the after party also.
Fantastic. Our advocacy was effective. So thank you for being here.
Yes.
So good timing, because I'm just giving an update about another conversation that I had on the 4th of July. So Councilmember, or I should say Vice Mayor Desiree Campbell stopped by our table, and I took the opportunity to talk to her about safe parking. And I said that we wanted to have a city-owned lot. And I talked about how there had been the 3 prongs proposed, and that this was all proposed back, a few years ago. And I offered to follow up with her and send her the staff report where that was all detailed, because she said basically the same thing that Councilmember Casson said, which she said that she thought this would have to be a referral. And I kind of asked, why would it have to be a referral? Why can't this just be on the agenda? And I admit I didn't fully understand the technical reason, but she was pretty confident that it couldn't just be on the agenda by itself. It would somehow have to be a referral. So they both seem to concur that this is only going to show up as a referral. And I agree that that's sort of worth asking about. But in the meantime, Vice Mayor Campbell does sound kind of open to doing a referral. She's not committed to it, but she's said to send her more information. So I went ahead and sent her an email with a link and a quote from the staff report from 2021 where they talked about the 3 prongs, and asked if she could do a referral for a city-owned lot. And I'm thinking after this conversation, I'm realizing I neglected to ask her to include in her referral to just, do the whole thing that they were supposed to do 3 years ago and do both of the prongs they haven't done yet.
Lisa,
Yes.
they repeat all that information in Appendix B in the homeless response plan. They basically confirm the 3 prongs or the 2 prongs again in the homeless response plan, and the city council member approved the homeless response plan. So why is there a referral? I don't understand.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that reminder. It's Appendix B, you said?
Go back to Appendix B. I read the whole thing inside and out. At the end, there was nothing concrete in the response plan, by the way. It's only they put it in the appendix. So if you go to Appendix B is where some of the details, the only details in the entire report are in Appendix B. But they do talk about the 2 prongs, the expanding the sites and going to where people are. So those are specifics in there. I don't understand why we do need referral from city council member.
So they did approve the plan, but as you said, the plan is kind of vague. So I think the issue is they have to do the procedure to turn parts of the plan into actual action. Does that make sense?
Appendix B has
Oh, she froze.
strategies. They are in, I have the link, and that they talk about the 6 strategies, and then they go to the Appendix B where all the details behind the multiple, the 6 strategies, but one section is specifically for the safe parking program.
You're quiet again, got it. Did you actually mute
Yeah,
yourself?
I was just saying, let me see if I could find the link, and I'll send it in a chat.
Okay. David.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the process question. Although it was very interesting because you could reframe it. But if you have a series of policy prescriptions from a homelessness response plan, they're not action items in themselves. The only thing, the agenda is set by the city manager. The only way any council member can tailor the agenda to add an action item is through the referral process. So you can't just say, hey, let's just put this on the agenda. You could in theory, but that would have to be up to the city manager to decide independently that he would choose to do so. So the only way to really engineer this being on the agenda is to have a referral, and then the referral would be, hey, out of Appendix B on the homelessness response plan, let's elevate this issue and really devote the resources and a timeline to it. I would remind everybody that about, when the last council, not this current council, had addressed the issue, and they were only haltingly keeping with prong 1 and did not want to go to prong 2 and prong 3. So it's not as if the council hasn't addressed it before. They've just not addressed it in the way that we would like them to address it. So those are 2 different issues.
All right. Annie?
Yeah, I mean, on the question of process, right, I understand that to agendize something, right, and to take action, take action initiated by a city council member as opposed to the city manager, it needs to go through a referral. So unless we're saying that, well, they already proved that they were going to do this via approving the homelessness response plan, which I'll admit I'm not quite familiar enough with that plan to know if that's accurate, we would need a referral. Though David or anybody else who's perhaps been paying a little bit more attention than I, are we saying that we think that they've already done, or that they already approved it via approving the homelessness response plan, or kind of what? Yeah, I feel like I've missed something in the conversation, but between Yagata, you might know.
I really don't know what are the next steps. I mean, they came up with this responsive plan, and we paid money for a company to do surveys and analysis and assessment, blah blah blah. They took into consideration the numbers from the audit that we all went to point in time when we went and kind of discussed and counted the homeless folks. I don't know if that needs to be brought up again as referral, or how do we, maybe that's a question to David, when you were on council and you wanted to check progress on particular items that are in the works with city staff, what would you do? Just, does it require referral, put it on the agenda, or
Well, there's 2 ways. One would be
yeah.
just in the individual one-on-one meetings with the city manager saying, this is important, where are you? Can you let us know? The other one is at the end of the meeting, you can say it publicly. But again, it's a question of semantics. I don't think that the homelessness, I'm glad you found Appendix B because it helps frame our debate, saying, hey, this is your own task force said that consultants suggested this, again, reaffirming it. So it gives a reason for us to bring it up. But it's not an action item. So in order for the council to act, it really needs to act on an agenda item and pass something and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, it's just mere suggestions and mere discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I'll respond to her and say my other colleagues are checking with Vice Mayor Campbell, and but by the way, this was something that was already approved in the homeless response plan, and you know, anyone can check with city council, with the city staff on progress on this. We urge you to do a check-in on this item personally and as a body with city staff to expedite this. Yeah.
Right.
All right, Catherine.
All right. Again, I put this in the comments, but um, during that city council meeting, the person that they hired to make this homelessness response plan was casting maintenance programs in a more negative light. Now, I understand what she was saying is that you can't just do maintenance and not do anything else. You know, she was recommending, you know, there has to be more action. But because of the way that it was kind of cast in a more negative light, my concern was that some people would interpret that as not needed. And I want to make clear that it is still a needed program because housing does take time. So that's my first point. And David, you had commented about the other two legs of the program, and I didn't quite catch what you were saying, and it was so brief I didn't understand the details of that. So I was wondering if you could expand on that thought, please.
The city council has historically had, I mean, for the last 5 or 6 years, tossed around 3 prongs. The one that is in place right now that Mary Lynn and everyone else has been talking about is the volunteer efforts by the churches to have overnight stays, safe parking. The second one is to meet where they're at, which is to provide social services where the RVs are on Christie and Stewart and wherever else they are in Fremont, just to really do a full court press and an assessment there in a systematic way. The third is to actually build a site or lease a site that is city owned, either city leased or city owned and city operated with amenities and really a structured place. The city helps staff and doesn't depend upon volunteers to do it. Now, when Gada is mentioning Appendix B, I have to read it because she was only mentioning 2 prongs. So I don't know whether those were prongs 2 and prongs 3, or they're referring prongs 1 and prongs 2 and not talking about a city-owned site. So I'll have to synthesize those two. But the action item would be to go what we've already taken as a body very explicitly, endorsed as all 3 prongs, and to really jumpstart that.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted clarification as to why, aside from what I've already commented, why there just hasn't been any movement in that direction. I was wondering if you had
There's
any
no
further
political will. I'm sure the Lisa Gott and Sandra have been at these meetings, and others, Mary Lynn. They're risk averse with issues of liability to the city. They're risk averse with the safe parking initiative in terms of the kinds of vehicles that would qualify for being mobile and on site. So it's just of a lack of will, the lack of financial resources. You have a budget crisis now that's looming in May. You know, we have from the May revise for cities. We've had a downturn in revenues generally. So everybody begins to get into that crouch and make sure that they have enough reserves for shortcomings. And again, the emphasis is police and fire, and there's very little discretionary funding. So there's a lot of factors. Okay, and then there's a lot of opposition, and council members are politicians, and they want to please the most people. And if you've got the loudest people being housed and not unhoused, saying do not give any resources to these people because you can only act as a magnet, whether it's true or not, that's the voices that they're going to listen to. Okay, so there's a lot of things.
Yeah, and this is why I keep coming back to the fact that this is something that's not very often brought up in council meetings. It's not being discussed except when it becomes an agenda item, and then you've got a whole outpouring of NIMBYs who are coming out saying, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. And I feel like we need more backing and support and voices saying, yes, we do. So, you know, not only does our organization, you know, have a little bit of weight in terms of the fact that we are an organization, but I'm wondering if just as leaders and members, we can reach out to our friends and ask them to write letters of support to city council, not just us.
I think that we could probably, I think it's a good idea. I actually have some ideas as well. For the sake of time, we could set this aside and we can figure that out. But I do really like that idea a lot. Because every time I talk to somebody and I say that I'm the communications director, they're like, oh, we love Fremont for everyone. Oh, you're doing a great job. So yeah, I think we do definitely have a lot of pull. So Lisa.
Thanks. So I had a couple things. First off, to answer David's question about the homelessness response plan, it mentions all three prongs, if I'm remembering correctly. It says we should do the two that we haven't done, but that we talked at all three. And then in addition to that, if the city manager is setting the agenda, should we ask her to put this on the agenda? Is that appropriate for a group like ours to do? Can we just write to Karina Shackelford and say, hey, this is in the homeless response plan. What are you going to do about it?
You can, but again, any city manager, not just Corinna, but it's kind of a passing of the buck that you get with a city manager. Well, unless the city directs me to do something, I'm not going to independently do it. She's got her lane. I think we had this discussion, Lisa, in connection with some other issue that we wanted to have the city address, and we were talking to the planning director, and so she's got a certain portfolio that she's focused on, and this is not one of them. Again, I think we're better off politically to go to the council to give her that direction, not to the city manager.
Okay, so you think that asking for the referral and going through that process is going to be more successful for us?
Right.
Okay, that's really
okay.
helpful insight.
Yeah.
Okay, Marie.
Yeah, so this is related to that, which is because the council approved the second approach that was in that response plan, which included some of these things, can any council member say, hey, I would like an update on that? Or does that have to be a referral where another council member has to agree and yeah. I mean, it seems like,
unless I'm incorrect, and Lisa can correct me or Gotta can correct me, it's a plan. It's a plan that sits on the shelf. It's not an action item. So you can't ask for an update because there's been no specific direction to give an update. So that's why we go back to a referral to say, look, it's in the plan, act on it. That would be the referral.
okay.
All right. Anybody got any, I'm going to be moving on, but anybody have any comments or questions they want to get in before I do?
Well, Annie was talking about having meetings with our council members to drum up support from all of them for supporting what will hopefully be a referral from Vice Mayor Campbell. Do we want to plan on that now, or?
You want to, sorry, say that again.
We talked about having meetings with our council members as part of our advocacy for this.
Well, I think it's a timing issue. First, the referral has to happen, get it on the agenda, and then it's a two-step process. Will the referral come back to the council for a further agenda item? The referral itself is, will we consider this for a future agenda item? So somewhere along that continuum is when you begin having those discussions.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
By the way, if you want specifics on where there's an action item for what you should do about the safe parking. It's in strategy 3.d as in dog. It's exactly where it says increase services to people living in their vehicles, including those with RVs and blah, blah, blah. So that's the strategy and the action that that the plan recommends regarding the safe parking program and outreach to people who are living in their vehicles on the street.
Okay. Sounds good. I think that we're good. We can move on. Okay. I'm going to take that as a yes. So I don't know if any of you know, we're going to be doing the Summer Lobby Blitz, which is going to be similar to what we did with YIMBY, except we're not going to have to go all the way to Sacramento. We're going to be going to Wahab and Alex Lee's offices in our district. And we're going to be having some bills that are either low income affordable housing or dealing directly with the unhoused that we would like to push to Alex Lee and Wahab. We're going to give 15 minutes each and, be able to give our pitch, and hopefully, we can encourage them to get behind him. I'm the one that's going to be coordinating with Alex Lee. I've been talking with his scheduler, and for sure it's going to be August 2nd. I think it's going to be at noon. I can't remember. I have to look at the email, but I don't have any confirmation yet if we're going to be in person or if it's going to be Zoom.
Is that a Friday or a Thursday? That's a.
It's August 2nd is a Friday. Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, I will.
Yeah, you probably heard me. It's like it's a work day. I understand.
I know. It's tough. I get it. Trust me, but they don't ever do things on weekends with us. It's
but
always.
Isn't it virtual, Jenna? Isn't it by remote? We're not physically.
I don't know. I need to ask that. I was just getting the date, so I didn't. That must have slipped my mind. I will email Karen tomorrow and let you guys know about that. But for sure, it's going to be August 2nd. I'll give you the time and whether it's virtual or not. I'll send out an email tomorrow to let you guys know. And yeah, Lisa's doing Senator Wahab. Give us your update on all that is pertained with that.
Sure. So we're going to be meeting with Senator Wahab's office online. They said they can't do an in-person meeting, which makes me think that the senator herself will probably be there because I think they could do an in-person if it was just staff. And that's going to be this coming Monday, January 22nd at noon. And I have a set of people who have said that they're interested, who are currently on the invite. I don't want it to be too big of a meeting, but if anybody has not been on the email threads and gotten the invite for that and wants to be on it, I'm seeing Marie, then yeah, we can add that. I think we need to schedule a planning meeting to make sure that we know what we're going to talk about, and sometime between now and Monday. So I thought we could take time right now for those of us who are participating to pull up our calendars and find a time that works for everybody. And I know that Jenna said that Sunday is best. But we also have like a bunch of other things happening on Sunday with the policy committee. So do we want to try to do this Sunday before our policy committee meeting? Or is there another time that works better for everybody?
Friday night. Saturday is a no-go because I am volunteering with Castro Valley Pride. It's going to be like an all-day thing.
Okay.
So this Sunday is bad for me, but Sundays in general are okay, except for from 5 to 6.
Okay. Well, Mary Lynn, did you want to get added to these meetings as well with our electeds? Yeah, okay. Write that down. Okay, so it sounds like there's not going to be a time that works for everybody. So we're going to have to do our best with a smaller group and then send out notes to the whole group because, you know, the meeting with Aisha Hobbs' office is this Monday. So unfortunately, we don't have enough time to find a time that works for everyone.
How does Friday night look for people? I mean, if it's Saturday, you guys can do it. And then I can get the notes.
I could do Friday night if that's what works for everybody else.
What time Friday?
What time would be good for you?
Well, I'm in Cupertino at 6, but I'd probably be back here about 7:30. I know that's late.
It's not late for me.
7:30 would work for me.
Okay. 7:30 for tomorrow then. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone object to that? And Sandra, I see your note. Okay, I think we got what we needed from that. So we'll go ahead and meet tomorrow night at 7:30. Great.
Sounds
I'll add
good.
it to my calendar.
Pardon?
I said I'll add it to my calendar.
Thank you. I'll send out an invite after this as well, but yeah, adding it's good.
You gonna go hang out with Tom Shane from the Shane Company, Marie? Cupertino?
Oh, he's been bulldozed.
Oh, he was bulldozed?
Well, not just him, that whole shopping center is gone and they're putting up a high-rise something, apartments, townhouses.
All right.
Where at?
Cupertino?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
San
across from,
Jose?
it's across from De Anza College. So, yeah.
All righty. Well, it looks like we just got the July 4th after party retrospective here last on the agenda. And I'll start it off by saying that wasn't quite as successful as last year, but I think the heat had a lot to do with it. It was so damn hot. But Lisa was able to get a sneaky maneuver in on Vice Mayor Campbell. I thought it was a really smart move. She came up and said hi to the table, and basically, Lisa, you give a little more insight on what exactly you said to Vice Mayor Campbell.
Well, I basically already shared it because it was about safe parking.
Yeah. But yeah, no, she was able to get the initiative started right then and there, and I was impressed by that. Yeah, I mean, Lisa, how would you say it turned out?
I agree that we were not as swarmed with activity as we were last time, but I think, you know, sometimes what's the word, quality over quantity. I mean, that the fact that we got somebody who attended, I heard Berto Aguilera. I'm not sure if I heard that quite right, or Bert Aguilera. I think he had to drop off, but you know, turning a sign up into somebody who's actually going to show up to a meeting is awesome. So
Yeah, no.
I don't think we actually did that last year. I don't think we have anybody who's like now an active member who found us last year. So I'm calling that a win, even if it was fewer children coloring in pages at our table.
I agree. All right. So yeah, gonna turn it over now to open mic. Does anybody have anything that they want to say? The floor is yours.
I just want to do a quick attendance maintenance here because I want to make sure that everybody gets credit for attending the meeting. So Adam and Jonathan, do we have your emails?
I'm not sure. I could put it in chat if you want.
Okay,
Pretty accessible.
thank you. Jonathan?
My email?
Yeah, do we have your email? I don't know if you're a new member or if you've been around, so I apologize if I.
Yes, I do.
Jonathan has attended some of our in-person meetings.
Okay. Do we happen to have his email on record? Do you know? Can you check the
I think
membership
so.
list?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can check.
Thank you.
I got it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, and I just confirmed we do have that same email in the list. So good to go for Jonathan.
Great, thank you. All right, that's all I had to say. I just want to make sure I was tracking everybody, make sure everybody got credit.
Okay.
That sounded kind of weird. I'm just saying it's because you have voting privileges when you attend meetings. So that's all I'm trying to say. I'm not tracking you for any other reason.
You're good, Catherine.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming out. As always, it's we always get at least 1 or 2 discussions that are very lively, and it's very enjoyable. I love seeing the passion that comes out of everybody. Next month, we're going to be having our hybrid meeting. I had heard that Bronco Billy's was closing down, but it still seems to be open. So maybe we can have a discussion with the council of the leads at another time, maybe potentially figure out another place in case Bronco Billy's is actually closed for good.
So it sounds like the answer is stay tuned for the location of the next one.
Because I was gonna say,
hey, I offer my backyard for if you want during the summertime at least. Bring a jacket and you can have my backyard.
oh, well, that's very nice of you. I'm down with that.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be a nice change. I might even be able to come to some of those.
Yeah, we can figure out the food logistics and whatnot. Did you want to do that for next month, Gata?
What date would that be? Probably the end of August. Yeah, that sounds good. I should be. It's Thursday.
Yeah,
31st. Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Wouldn't be the 31st. The third Thursday would be a week before that.
The 15th, August 15th.
August, yeah. Oh, you're right. The 15th.
15. Right. Let me double check something.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, yeah. In general, yeah, it should work.
Well, we'll keep that as a tentative yes, and you can hit me up, and we'll figure that out. And I'll keep an eye on Bronco Billy's. So yeah, okay, cool.
If we should be having a heat wave during that time, I can't do it. I will wilt in excessive heat. So,
what row?
Yeah. So if we're having a heat wave during that time, we probably should have a plan B in mind.
Trust me, in my backyard, it's freezing during the summer, and you need a jacket. So at 6 o'clock, we're pretty safe. There's no heat in here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. We will keep that as a tentative for now. And of course, watch out for your email inboxes the closer it gets to that date. So once again, thank you, everybody. Great to see you all, and see you next month.
Great. Thank you all. Have a great evening.